There we are, Sunday night at the Truth Proof Mansion, Paul. Another live stream.
Yeah, here we are again, Les. Sunday night, a bit better day today. Nice weather, puts a bit of a smile on everybody's face. And I can see we've got quite a few people in, which is nice. Thanks for support and all good. Just may as well go straight through a few names.
Yeah, see what we can find in tonight's stream.
I can hear my voice echoing. Have you got another microphone, Les?
No. Should be all good. But yeah, just carry on. I'll just do some adjustments at this end.
I think you're going to have to because we can hear ourselves and you've got to running. So, yeah, we got Martin Abbas. Right, all good. Still doing it.
No, it's not at this end, Paul. I've got it all turned down, so I don't know what the problem is. Have you got something? Have you got the stream running?
Nothing different.
Yeah.
Oh, for God's sake, let's have a look.
Okay, sorry for the gremlins, folks.
Here we go.
It'll probably be stream. It'll probably be the network and stream, Paul.
No worries, it's all good. So we got Rebecca King, Lisa Odd, Alex Thompson, Bramwell. I know Martin Abbas is in. I spoke to Martin today. Linny's in, Mrs. Linny. I think Peter will be in, watching, as usual, Peter. Karen Behrman, we're going to say Rock Hudson, Rob Hudson, Mark Anderson, Steph, Alison Buttle doing moderating for us. Thanks, Alison. G-Dog, and let's have a look. Thudda and Richie White, Karen Behrman, as fast as I go through the... Oh, Rev's in. Good to talk to you today, mate. All good. And yeah, all good. Welsh Dragon and Joey Hayes. And I'm not sure if Pat's in. She usually gets in, but she might get in later. So thanks for support, guys. And questions, please. Tonight we're going to do some questions and get through and just cover a few things that are of interest to people regarding the unexplained. So if you want to just fire some questions at us, let's do it. Have you any views, Les, out to add?
Yeah, well, I think we've got a very, very important announcement to make, haven't we, Paul? And I'll let you announce it.
Oh, well, we've got a great guest that we're going to be interviewing in next week or so, and we're going to be interviewing Robbie Williams, which is I'm quite thrilled to be speaking with Robbie, and we're going to do a pre-record, but we'll put it up as a premiere. And you know, obviously I needed a date before I could say with any detail that we were going to be doing it. So I would have thought in next week or so we'll be doing an interview, and then we'll be putting it out maybe a week after that. So that should be interesting. And I know he's got a wide and varied interest in Unexplained. I mean, we've spoke on and off for a number of years, and he's really interesting man to talk to, if I'm being truthful. I consider him a friend, and I'm really looking forward to speaking with him. And it'll not just be me, Les, and Robbie. It'll be me, Les, Robbie, and Mick Park. Mick, who's done the music for Wolflands, and Mick, who's instrumental in setting a lot of things up, really. You know, he's a great help to us all. So, yeah, really looking forward to it. We'll have a fixed date on it shortly, but we can say with some certainty, or at least I hope so, that we'll get that interview off the ground. So, you know, just listen up. We'll get it done and posted out as soon as possible. So, thank you. Now we're there, Les. Oh, he's gone. Just so. What else are we doing today, or what else are we looking at? I know that I spoke to Martin Abbas earlier today, who's in the area, and Martin were asking me about places to go, and he wanted to visit Speeton. Basically, Martin is interested in unexplained phenomena and gets to area and wants to visit a few places. We're off to the cliff tops in the week with Martin, so that should be fun. But I told him Speeton, and I know there's people in the chat now who've had experiences at Speeton, and myself and Chris Turner have filmed one of them, and we'll just cover that one just briefly. I'll probably get the year wrong here, but I think it was 2018. Basically, this lady and her husband were walking up the beach in the summer. We've talked about it before. Nice sunny day. Don't get a lot of footfall on... I said that well, didn't I, without slipping up, on Speeton Beach. So even in height at season, it's not teeming with people because you've got to walk a fair distance from Reeton to get to it, or go down that probably 400-foot incline at 45 degrees, which is rough going. And as they're walking along, they see about 2 foot deep, maybe a bit bigger, and about 15, 16-inch wide, an oval jelly just hung in the air. Fascinates me, this report, because when you talk about things like portals, I know we've no idea what it was, but it were up close and personal. They looked at it and walked around this thing. I mean, you can correct me if you're in chat and I've got any aspects of this wrong, because there's nothing better than the witness. But it's almost like what would you call it? When you get haze on a road and you get that shimmer, the heat haze, but it's there, it's hung, it's a definite shape, about 4 foot off the ground, and it's just hung there. At one point, there were a little boy on beach. They thought he were going to run into it. I don't know whether it would have been foolish, but I wonder what it'd have been like if you'd have put your hand in it or touched it. It's fabulous. But that's Speeton, and when people say to me, which is the place would you recommend for things of high strangeness, I think I'd recommend that beach, to be honest with you, in that particular area. Although there's lots happening, and it's only 1.5 miles up the coast from, if that, to Bempton. So we're all within the zone, aren't we? It's just that Bempton, with the bird sanctuary, Les, gets lots of activity.
I think, this could be just coincidental, but it is the highest point on the east coast of that part of the east coast, isn't it?
It is, yeah. The cliffs there are 420 feet at their highest point.
That's it. So that very point at Speeton is the highest point of the cliffs. So, and bearing on anything, I don't know.
Not unexplained phenomena, but the rock anglers go down from Speeton, and they walk along bottom at cliffs when tide's out, and it doesn't always go out far, and then they get fishing under Bempton cliffs, under what they call Bempton bottoms, and then they let tide come in and get themselves cut off and fish incoming tide. I mean, obviously they know the sea conditions and the tides, and then obviously they make an hasty retreat. After tide's gone out, they get back. So, but I'm not going to go into any detail about this, but there's been an incident, a proper incident, with 4 fishermen at Bempton Bottoms that were cut off when something happened and they couldn't get back. But I'll get more clarification and speak to witness more before I start speaking about it in any detail. But it involved, for all intents and purposes, aliens. It's just crazy. Not necessarily from outer space, but yeah. Questions tonight, people. Yeah,
I've got to thank Martin Abbas and Madeline Wick for the monetary donations tonight so far. Thanks for that, all much appreciated. And I've got a question from, wow.
Can I just do this one? Go on then. Yeah, we'll do this.
Are you ready for the awakening next weekend, Paul? And for those who don't know what's happening next week, can you please?
Yeah. So next Saturday coming, it's the Awakening Conference, the darker side of ufology. And Steve Mehrer and Vitali have run these conferences, sometimes 2-3 a year, or there's at least 2 this coming year, I think. So this one and another one that they announced yesterday. And for this conference, we're talking about the darker side of ufology, and there is a darker side to it. We've got so many people who live in this love and light and think everything's rosy, but there's a lot more sinister, or there's a sinister element to what we're looking into. And I think that it's going to get, I wouldn't say exposed, there'll be no revelations, because it'll be nothing nobody else has ever said before, but we're actually leaning towards the idea that everything within the subject is linked. And I've been saying that for years, but I can see that there's a lot of people coming to the same conclusions, and there's this bleed through into other parts of the phenomena. Like the UFOs. At one time, you would never get UFO researchers wanting to consider anything outside of what they thought the narrative for UFOs were. But now you can see that there's a bleed through. There's other things connected to it, and I think this conference is going to reveal quite a lot of that. I mean, I'm talking for an hour, and I've got a talk that I've never done before lined up, and I'm really looking forward to going with it. And I saw a question. It's gone now. It weren't in capitals, saying Reeton and Bempton are more active than Speeton. It's not a competition. If you've got experience of those areas and things happening, then I'd love to hear about it. I really would. But yeah, all good.
Okay, then. South Coast Richard is asking, Paul, has the farmer on the Wolds with all the cameras caught anything on them recently?
I haven't spoke to him, to be quite honest with you, for at least 2 years. Not for no other reason than everything's sort of consumed, and I know his health hadn't been good. But I would imagine, I would have a guess and say yes, because this fella had so much footage. It were unbelievable. And just to stay with that for a moment, this guy contacted me probably 2015, 2016, and told me he'd been seeing unusual lights and things out on the East Yorkshire Wolds. No, I need to draw right back. Apologies. We're going right back to 2007, 2006, 7, 8, and 9. Time flies, doesn't it? And he told me he'd been going strange anomalies on his cameras. And when I went to meet him, he'd got cameras in every room set up on the window ledges on moving cams and big hard drives that are recording this all day long. And sure enough, he's got all this footage of these strange, once again, we're only chasing lights in sky, but it's strange lights and light anomalies. And I'll not say where he lives, but he's literally he's very close to RAF Staxton Wold. So there's no aircraft land at Staxton Wold or anything, so it's not aircraft landing. And the stuff that he's filming is at front, back, and at side. So it's fascinating. I mean, back, I don't know what year, probably 2006, Richard D. Hall came through to see him. And he were fascinated by the footage because he reached out to Richard as well. And when Richard actually arrived, he wouldn't allow him to interview him, which was a shame. And I were at Danes Dyke walking my little dog with my wife. And this farmer guy rang me and said, would I come through and do an interview in place of him? Because I think he felt a bit embarrassed because Richard had travelled a fair way, and I did. So that interview will be on internet somewhere. It will be on YouTube, and so that's what we did. So yeah, basically up until 2009, I were in that area. I were up on Wolds, up at Cottam. Weaverthorpe is a prolific place. And all these areas. It's more UFO and light form phenomena, to be honest with you, but they're all displaying unusual phenomena. So yeah, thanks for that question, South Coast Richard. All good.
Okay.
So anything more?
Yeah. Let's have a look. Thanks for all the questions, by the way.
I do thank you, because it's great. It makes it easier for me. There's Mark Anderson. Oh, yeah. Alex Thompson. The UFO incident in Brazil. Despite knowing little about it, find it more interesting than Roswell. Is this the face peelers, Alex? I know you can't answer me, but I think it is, where the locals of the village, is it even a tribe? I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody, claimed that aliens were coming in and trying to steal people, and they'd been defending themselves from these alien beings apparently for quite a long time, and the authorities said that it was loggers, that were doing it, and all sorts of ridiculous suggestions, loggers dressed as aliens and all sorts of things to frighten the natives. And now all that's been disproved. I'm not saying it's a true UFO event, because I don't know enough about it, but I know the statements that they were coming out with at first to sort of discredit the natives to the area have been disproved. So something very strange were happening there. All these things are cases really I haven't got time to look into, but they're no less fascinating than anything I'm doing.
Yeah, and I've just picking up on Wikipedia, if that's any source of truth, I don't know. But it just says there was a police officer killed, a death of a police officer, and the local authorities put it down to there was unexplained deaths, animal deaths occurring at a local zoo as well.
Really?
So yeah,
Is this the same one? Is this the same one?
yeah,
I
I think
wonder.
so. Well, I'll put it on the screen just
No,
for.
no, it's okay, Les. It's just that I know that there's something happening in the jungles where really remote place, and there's somebody being in to try and document it and report it. So I think probably we need more information before we start trying to go into any detail with this.
Yeah. Okay,
Let's
right.
get
So
to
we'll
another
move on.
question.
Let's have a look. What's this one here? Paul, are you well known? Are you well known in Bridlington or Bempton because of all of your truth-proof output?
I wouldn't say so. No, not particularly. You know, odd times people do speak, and you know they've seen podcasts and what have you. I suppose you'd be well known if you put it about that you're doing all. I do all sorts of things, you know. But so I don't think I'm well known because of truth proof. No, not particularly, because I don't really talk about it outside of the environment. If somebody wants to talk to me about a sighting or an experience, then I'd make great efforts to talk to them and spend time with them. But I don't kind of go around with a T-shirt on saying truth proof and an email address, you know, let the people find me kind of thing.
I'll put this one on the screen, but I won't read it out because of YouTube guidelines, Paul.
Okay. No, I don't think so. The ones that I were looking into in 2017 to February 2019, that just petered out. I dare say other things might be happening, but I've not come across anything. I suppose you've just got to wait, and eventually, if these things are happening, somebody will get in touch. That information will filter through. I don't know whether I'm fortunate or unfortunate in 2017 when I started looking into those animal deaths. I don't know, because it was a strange time. You find yourself going onto these fields in middle of nowhere at 4:30 in the morning, but best part over 2 years, and you know something is absolutely devastating these animals, and you know it's not the work of a fox or a badger. And I hear people in chat maybe going, "How do you know that?" Well, based on the fact that most of the time, and I know nobody's arguing back with me, but I can just see that kind of comment would come through. These are 80 to 90 kilo ewes, fully grown sheep. At certain times of year, they've got lambs with them. And when I went on the fields, I was finding the fully grown sheep deceased. The lamb stood at the side of its mother. That's not the work of a fox or a badger, I can tell you now. So that's why I knew something else or something other was doing it. Never got to the bottom of what it was, though, unfortunately. So, yeah, all good.
Rod is asking, Paul, is there any particular time of the year that the house strangeness occurs in your area?
It does show up, Rod. It's a good point. And, you know, when you start looking in archives and when you start getting reports, I realised that June is particularly prolific in unexplained phenomena in area for some reason. Even narrowing it down, I don't mean there's hundreds of pages of stuff, but June the 15th, for some reason, things happen around June the 15th. And it really does. And November and December. But then when you look at it, it's all time. Like February 2019, February 8th, 2019 is when military guys had their encounter. February 8th, 2020 is when Bob Brown and one of my daughters, Gemma, and myself went onto cliff tops, and they saw that square of white light I were looking out to sea. But it's a year to, you know what I mean? It's a year in between those things happening. And, you know, so yeah, I suppose there are prominent months, and I don't know whether that occurs in other areas, what you'd call of eye strangeness. I suppose it does. But are those researchers hiding that from us? Don't they want us to know them things? I don't know. I believe we should share it because other people could come and give me some information.
Mark Anderson is asking, Paul, did the farmer have any footage when he wasn't present?
Yeah, because they were filming 24/7, Mark, the cameras. And he made this. This guy was retired, by the way, when we said the farmer. They were retired. Yeah. And he made this his life's almost vocation. He literally doing it 24/7. You know, myself and Steve Ashbridge would be up at Cottam, If you're familiar with the Wolds, if not, Google these places. We'd be at Cottam because it's got a brilliant 360 area to view, and we could see Staxton Wolds, so we knew that he were in close proximity. He could actually see, couldn't see our car. We're probably 6 miles away. But I knew we were looking in that way, that area. And when these things were appearing, he's calling us up, saying, I can see them now. Can you see? And we could see them. Or he'd see them further away over towards, Muston or other places where they weren't visible to us. And he'd say he'd seen them. And a few minutes later, these things wouldn't fly across the sky. You'd be seeing them appear. That's what's so unusual about these lights. They don't, it's not a satellite that's just traveling. And we're getting some misidentification. They just appear, which I find fascinating.
All right, just to take us away from that, this question is asking from Kerry B. Why is there a lead cap on the Rudstone monolith, and who is responsible for putting it there?
I don't know, Kerry. It probably got put there. I bet it's been on there over 100 years, seriously, and it could have been replaced over that time. I believe there's I know in bottom corner at Churchyard, there's another piece of stone. If you get into Rudstone Churchyard and you go into the very bottom corner, almost where you walk in, there's another piece of stone. And for a long time, they thought it was off the top of the monolith, but it's not. I've not decided it's not. Archaeologists and people who've inspected it have decided it's not. But I think there's a splitting top at stone. So I think the lead cap, some people will interpret it, we don't want it to suppress its energies, or it's there to dumb down its energies, for want of a better word. And that could be what it's for. But it could also be that if water gets into that splitting top at stone and it expands, parts of the stone might crack. So there could be a perfectly plausible explanation. But I don't know how long it's been there and who were responsible for putting it there. I don't know, to be honest with you. I know it were excavated in late 1800s, which were interesting, and I think I hope I'm right. I think it was William Strickland who did the dig and what have you, and they found a large quantity of human skulls below ground where monolith was, and I think it was that established that it was as big below ground as what it was above ground.
I was just going to ask that question, myself, because I thought, well, if you see that much above, there's usually that much underneath, isn't there?
Yeah. Of stone, isn't it?
Okay, then. So let's have a look then.
So I see Lisa Odds said it's to stop erosion. So there you go, Lisa. That's what I'd have thought. And thank you.
Question. I watched Walk on the Wild Side short film today. What do you and the viewers think of the strange noise in the background, in brackets wind?
Do you know, Lee? I don't know. I just heard it, and it weren't a particularly nice day as regard wind. And camera can pick things up, and it sort of gurgles a little bit and what have you. That just sounded a little bit different. So I thought I'd just raise volume a little bit on it and just play it, and just said strange sound, probably wind, and that could be. So if what Lee's referring to is a YouTube that Les put on other day, where I've just been walking around the area of Danesdyke, just casually talking about things, and I don't know that you heard it, Les, but there's a sound at a certain point, and it could be perfectly explainable, but I did hear it. Somebody's also sent me a frame capture this morning of, it's quite odd actually, 7 minutes in, of a strange shape behind me, but it's, once again, it's pareidolia probably,
Interesting. No, all the same. Right then, totally unrelated, but I'll throw the question on the screen anyway. Watch Dragon Rising asking, Paul, did you enjoy your chocolate cake yesterday?
Yeah, I did, yeah. You know what I like. Yeah, chocolate cake. Thank you. Yeah, I did. I've had a bit more today, to be honest with you. It's for slimming, I've got to lose weight. So
yeah.
There's nothing better than chocolate cake.
Brilliant.
Yeah, thank you.
There's a good question anyway from South Coast, Richard. Can anyone give me details of the guy who lives in Paul's top flat? I think his first name is Bob. I can't find his YouTube account since having to replace my lost mobile phone. Many thanks. I'll put Bob's YouTube in the chat.
That would be good at South Coast, Rich. And I think Bob were in earlier, so if he sees this, or I'll tell him later, or if you want, if you don't get it by information Les has given you, just email me and I'll pass it on to him.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, that's all good then.
Yeah, so right then, I'll put this question on from Enigma. Have there been any more underwater lights seen recently off the East Yorkshire coast?
We've not seen any. No. Twice last year, we were fortunate enough to see the underwater lights, and I know one of the people in chat was with me, and not seen any more. But I'd love to see more. Peter, who comes up with us, one of the things he says constantly is, "I'd love to see something come out at water," because people have reported that. I've never seen anything like that, by the way, but people have reported it. So it would be quite incredible if that happened.
It'd be like finding the Holy Grail, really, wouldn't it?
Well, it would, but once again, Les, chances of us having a camera rolling and it'd just be words, wouldn't it? I could say I've seen it, but there's as much proof for me saying it and not seeing it. Do you know what I mean? I was talking to a member at RSPB a few years ago. I found myself down there. It was summer evening, and there weren't many people about. He ended up talking to me, and I'm not there for seabirds. And he told me that one of the members of staff, well, two, one of them had left, but one of them was still on, who'd seen a red sphere of light enter at sea off that coast where they were working. So, and I've heard of a sphere of light leaving the sea. And I know that when we spoke to Dan and we filmed him in September of last year, Les, when he'd seen those things at Tunstall, one of the fishermen said that lights, did he say they were under sea? Lights were coming from under the sea towards the fishermen on the beach, then they retreated again. So it's fascinating.
Well, this kind of follows on from that then. This next question from Gren Steele. What's been happening in the last few visits to the cliffs? And I must say, Gren, anything really what comes up, Paul does usually do a YouTube short for it, so there'll be some shorts on there what relate to recent events.
Gren, a couple of weeks ago, if you look on the YouTube channel, you'll see that I just put a few clips up, moving footage of what I saw with Peter. It was a Monday night 2 weeks ago. Sorry, Tuesday night. 2 weeks ago, because we laughed because Peter's wife were ill on Monday, so we didn't go, and we went Tuesday instead. So she did us a favor. She's all right now, by the way. These lights, once again, one light appears punched into a multiple of 6, and then we got one that went into a multiple of 3. They're not telling us anything, people. All we're seeing is something unusual. We're not seeing anything structured inside them. And it's frustrating. All we're doing are chasing lights, but there is more out there, isn't there? And there is more to be seen. There's more to be experienced by. We know that from the experiences that people have reported on those cliff tops. Maybe we're lucky not to see these things up close and personal. Who can say?
Well, here's a question which I know what the answer to this will be. We'll put this on the screen from Rod. Paul, any chance of getting access to RF Bempton for an investigation?
I think that is just no. I wouldn't think there's any chance, if I'm being truthful. When I wrote the first Truth Proof book, this one, I contacted the farmer and I asked if I could go on the base to take photographs and just have a look round the area, because I wanted to do it as part of writing book. And he was kind enough to let me on, and I thank him for that. And I've never been on since, and I'm absolutely certain that nobody's going to get access onto it. So you could try, but I don't mean try illegally. You'd have to contact them, but no, I don't think so.
Okay, moving on. Robert Hilton, has Paul or Les seen any unusual planes, etc. recently? I understand the RAF have been testing new drones and UAVs.
I haven't, no, but it ties in with something that we filmed probably before Christmas, myself and Peter. I managed to get it on Psionics because it did look really strange, and it looked like it could have been something man-made, if that makes sense, because it was a static red light, and then suddenly it changed. It just switched off, and then it became an absolutely super fast pulsing white light, then it switched off, as in went invisible, and then it became green. And I thought at the time, I thought it's got to be some kind of military tech, but who can say? I wouldn't say that's the problem, but that's the thing. You know, we cannot associate all of these unexplained lights as being something from outer space or under sea, because there could be a perfectly rational explanation. The orange spheres of light, I honestly believe that they're totally unexplained phenomena. And I use the Coast Guard and lifeboat logs as an example, because as far back as you can go with them, they've got reports of going out to these flares that they are suspected flares, and then they come back and they write in their report false alarm with good intent. And when you get to speak to people who've been out, or who've seen these things, it's just orange spheres of light that have just appeared and switched off. So, and if it's military tech, what I'm saying is it's not advanced since 1940s. Right, let's go on. Sorry.
Yeah, and well, just to answer my part, no, I've not seen any either. But yeah, there has been a lot of aircraft activity around here. But there is a operation in the Arctic, I think, at this moment in time. So they are operating up there. But yeah, I mean, UAVs and drones, they've got to test them somewhere, aren't they, Paul? So it's more than likely that we've seen them, but as you said earlier, we might not have even known what they were. Or
there's enough areas of land, though. There's enough places to test these things without doing it in a populated area or anywhere where there's a potential for these things to be seen, isn't there? You know, it's like the flying triangles that people report, and people will say it's military tech that's been tested. Why would you fly it over Hull if you don't want everybody to see it? And there's been quite a few seen around the outskirts of Hull, you know, and prolific reports of huge flying triangles. Why fly them so close to a heavily populated area? And where are they coming from? You know, there's people say it's a military tech, the flying triangles, but John Hanson, who's probably got the biggest archive of UFO-related literature, I won't just say in UK, probably in world, is this small museum he's got of UFO stuff. But he's got reports of triangles in 1901 by police officers seeing flying triangles. It's, you know, I don't think we'd got them then.
Okay. Paul Flanagan, have either of you got any opinions on David Pleiades' film Missing 411, The UFO Connection? I'll let you
I haven't really. I mean, there's clearly something strange going on. It's like the missing people that I've researched in these books. He's careful not to say that it's UFO related or cryptid related, and I don't blame him, because there's no proof of that. All we can say is that these people have gone missing in an area that produces highly unusual activity, and that's where I draw a line at it, because I don't think it's fair to husband, wife, mother, son of the people who've gone missing to speculate that it could be UFOs or cryptids or anything of that nature without any proof. You know, but don't stop me looking into them, because they've definitely vanished up there as well.
Yeah, and I've not seen the film anyway, but I do watch. I've got to admit, I do watch his weekly shows on YouTube, and personally, I think some of the links he makes are a little bit dubious, but that's just my personal opinion.
See, well, that's good, Les. I mean, your opinion's as valid as anybody's. I don't watch much TV or YouTube or anything. I don't even read many books, but you know, so I haven't really got a massive opinion on what he's putting out. So I see. Can I just look at Mel's question, because it's a little bit tongue in cheek? Paul, I am trying to put weight on, so can I start dieting? No, I think you've got that wrong road around, Mel. Smells
nice one. Yeah,
he's always good. He always likes joking, does Mel? Lovely guy, and not been well lately. So wishing you all the best, Mel.
Yeah, no, that was a good one, Mel. It made me laugh, so that's great. Let's have a look then. What's this one then? Well, Dragon Rising, Paul. Has the Bobster ever shown any fear when you're off together at something you can't see? That's a good question, isn't it?
he's not a brave dog, to be honest with you. And I absolutely love him to bits, but he's not brave, him Bob. He'll run around all the time with me, as you see him in them shorts. We went into the wood where a friend of mine told me that these deer carcasses had been put in the trees last year, and for some reason, and they were on its skeletal remains, so it weren't the smell. And you can see it on short that we put out. He wouldn't come. He's just stopping. So he did perceive something there. He started barking at wall. He'll like suddenly look up and he goes to wall and he's barking at the wall. But when I say he's not brave, when I've finished this and he's sat in other room all quiet, when I open door, he'll start barking and I'll say, "What you shouting at me for?" So he knows it's my voice. Still carries on barking and growling. He's full of himself. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what it is with him. He just makes me laugh. He puts a big smile on my face all the time. Absolutely love him. Yeah.
This question from Maxo. Do the fishermen at Bempton talk about the lights and what do they think about them?
Yeah, they do. When you can actually get under the skin, Sue, and find these things out. I wouldn't say that a few of them know about the unexplained phenomena. If we were going to do a poll, and I've never done one, I would say that 99% of them know about the unexplained phenomena. And I would say that about 90% of them don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
That's exactly how it is. I was fortunate enough years ago to be good friends with some fishermen who were really well respected in area. And we were good friends. One of them used to work with me. He packed in working on trawlers and worked with me on a building site. We became great friends. When he went back on the trawlers, it's kind of opened door for me because I could go to him with a bit of information that I'd heard, and he'd contact these people and so talk to Paul, and they would, and that's how I found out about the fate ball. It's a football, by the way, but that what terminology that this old chap used when he said that this sphere of light were above his boat in daylight below Crab Rocks. And I said, how big was it? And he said, fate ball. A proper Flamborough bloke, and who wouldn't never, ever have told me about that account without the help of them guys. So, yeah, they do talk about it. I've spoke to some people, Sue, and I've had a report of a triangle seen by Flamborough people driving a minibus from a rugby match. And we're talking fishermen here as well, some of them. And I've been told on good authority that they saw this triangle, and it was over near Links Golf Course, I think. I don't know whether they were going to rugby match or coming back. I can't remember that bit. But when I actually went to speak to a fisherman, they denied all knowledge of it. I know they saw it. So, that's what you run up against. But it's everybody's right. Nobody has to tell anybody anything, do they? Just because you've had an experience, it's just... And it might not interest you. And if it don't interest you, if it just goes over the top of your head and you'd sooner catch fish and crabs and lobster, then so what?
And I think the other thing to bear in mind here is that fishermen do have quite a lot of superstitions, don't they?
Yeah.
Like they'll carry a black cat because it will bring them luck, and things like that. And so superstition may play a part in whether they decide, whether to talk about these things. Yeah,
it could be. They were in Flamborough. There were superstitions about, of all things, I'm not joking, walking on eggshells and seeing. I think it was a hare or a pig, and they wouldn't go to sea. I'm not joking here. It's just it's just superstitions, and we all do it to some degree. We all sort of. I don't like walking under ladders. Well, it's supposed to be bad luck. I don't know whether it is. I suppose it could be. You've potential to get a can dropped on your head or an hammer, I suppose, aren't you? So, yeah, it maybe is a good idea not to walk under a ladder. Hey, we're deviating now. We're not talking about superstitions. Let's come on.
Right, PD, do you have any reports of light beings, angels, not the cliche variety? Anything with an overwhelming positivity, not negativity, which is so often discussed. I believe how deep intuition descends.
Yeah, I have one that always springs to mind because I spoke to a lovely lady called Annie. I'll not say her surname, and she was very ill. And she wrote to me and told me that she brought her only son up. And I hope I get this right for her. She brought her only son up, and he were in a horrific accident, and it were touch and go. I mean, not when she were ill. She wrote to me and told me all this while she were ill with cancer, to be honest. And she did me a drawing and everything. I've still got it, and it's lovely that she sent me this. And she said he were alive, he was everything. And she was praying that he'd be okay, praying he's in hospital, he's unconscious. He was her life. She said on one night she woke up in her room and she did a drawing, and there's a little dressing table. She said, and there's a being stood with its back to me. It didn't have wings. I know you talked about angels, but she believed it were an angel. She said it had a white robe on. She said, and it had hair I'm sure she said like a page boy that were glowing. And she knew instantly that it couldn't turn round, because if it turned round, she says, it would have been that powerful, it would have killed me looking at it. But it was positivity. That's what we're getting at here. It had its back to her, and it was told her, let's assume mind speak, or she got the message that everything is going to be all right. And she swears that she saw this. And apparently the next day, this young man started to recover, and he's still alive and well now. And lovely ladies, you know, I know she weren't well, and I spoke to her on phone, and she described it. And I asked her if she'd do me a drawing, and she took time, and I've got that drawing. And ask me next week. I'll put drawing up it, because it's brilliant. You know what I mean? So yeah. So there are some positive things, even though the conference that we're doing on Saturday, the darker side of ufology, that's what it's about. And I do think there's a lot of dark and sinister stuff to this subject, to be honest. But yeah, there is positivity.
Right. Martin Abbas is asking, what might be the way the MOD might release disclosure like the American Senate?
I don't know, Martin. You know, I suppose people are trying it all the time. Is the disclosure a red herring? Give us a little bit of information, tie us up in knots for another 4 or 5 years, and then let's try it again, and let's just keep prolonging the process. I noticed today, I can't remember the guy's name, so some people might want to Google it. If you put UFO and then put news, you'll see that there's somebody being employed by the Pentagon to look into all this. And I briefly listened to it. Not in any detail, and he says there's no evidence of any of it. You know, so is that man being put in place just to disprove everything and create more of a muddy pool? I don't know. There's no clarity, is there? Everybody's arguing to and fro, and when we think we're going to get movement, there's something like putting way to block us. Well,
yeah, and my opinion is that in the UK, it'll never take place. And
I think it's taking place.
Why I think that is because when you get headlines on the red top newspapers saying, you know, there's a picture of a woman or whatever, I saw a UFO and it did this to me, or an alien, it did this to me, then this is all ridicule from top to bottom.
Without a doubt. But the in a way, we've got disclosure without even or a form of it, because people are more open. People are more open to talking about it. You couldn't have talked about UFOs and the possibility of some kind of visitation by other beings 10, 15 years ago as openly. I think now it's almost like the big cat subject that used to be taboo and everybody thought it was a complete joke. They're not here. I think everybody realizes that they're here now. But the UFO subject, people actually accept the fact that these other intelligences and these other things are happening. It's overwhelming, the amount of people that are coming forward with reports that are all quite similar. We know it's all diverse, but there's still that element there, that the thread of the same. I think it's overwhelming. I think we've got that kind of exposure to the subject now that it can't ever go backwards. It's just that the people in officialdom aren't ever going to step out and say, do you know what? It's happening. For what reason, I don't know.
Yep. And we've got a question great question, by the way, Martin. Let's have a look at Linda Richardson's question. Has anyone thrown disbelief away and tried to communicate? Are they using the mind or with lasers or anything else? I think they are intelligent
energy forms.
Okay.
I think a lot of people try to do that, Linda, and I suppose it is channeling the mind. And is it any different to spiritualism, mediums trying to contact this unknown other? do you know what? I'm not saying it's the same, but it's a form of communication. I don't advocate using the Ouija board. Never will do, never would. But that board's not magical, but it's something to channel the mind into communicating with something from the other side of this firewall that we can't penetrate. It's a one-way street as far as I'm concerned, and it operates on its terms. So yeah, you hear of people trying CE5. I've not tried it. I don't know a lot about it, but just concentrated mind and thought process, and allegedly these things come through. These things happen. So yeah, it happens, Linda.
Okay, great question. And let's have a look. Bramwell, I'll put this on the screen, but thanks for your donation as well. New to the channel, enjoying very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, Bramwell.
Thank you. Thanks, Bramwell.
Yeah.
I can see Al Durham is just saying, will the talk be videoed next weekend? I think it will, Al, and good to see you, mate. I've no idea when they will put it out, though. Or there might be a live link. I'll ask about that, Al. I don't know.
Let's have a look then. Just to stay with Bramwell, please check out all the videos. You probably will on the YouTube channel. I think there's over 300 on there now, Paul.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I've got to read this question out. Has Les got to rush off to the pub tonight like last week? But I don't think you drink at pubs, do you, Les?
No. Let's have a look. Any reports about the Tankersley golf course from Yorkshire Grey?
No, Grey, to be honest. And I would imagine that you might have some if you've put that out there, but, you know, give us a shout if you've got some. It's strange. I mean, we talked about it other week. I think we brought it up that you get a lot of strange occurrences on and around golf courses. And I don't just mean in Bridlington and East Yorkshire. I seem to get reports where things have been seen around golf courses. Even there was one in Hull. I've not really talked about it. And there's little coppice of trees on golf course. Circle of trees, whacked his golf ball, it's gone into it. There's a bit of greenery inside it, and this guy found a pig laid dead in this area. What's interesting about this, he says, if you looked at it weren't fully grown, but it weren't a little one, say about as big as a Labrador. He said, and it looked like a great white shark had just bit a chunk out of its back. So it sounds a bit macabre, people, but that's not one that you hear every day, is it? But yeah, reports of strange things on golf courses. And I spoke to the guy on the phone as well. There's an old chap that told me that. But not everything's supposed to be true. That's why I've not wrote about it, have I? But there you go.
Okay. And we've got... right then, there's one from Paul Forge. Hi, Paul and Les. Was there any outcome on the mysterious humming as was recently reported? And I think this was in Lincolnshire South Bank once it, Paul.
I don't think they've got to the bottom of it, Paul, but you know, we hear it round here. The woman over at Road to me, I don't know whether it's just certain people's hearing are sensitive to it. She hears it more than me, and I'll come out odd mornings and she said, did you hear it last night? And anybody who's heard this humming, it's almost like once you've heard it, you can't unhear it, but you could go for hours, and then all of a sudden you become aware that there's something. It's hard to explain, but yeah, I've heard it, but I don't think anything's been resolved with this humming yet.
Right, Jojo says, not a question. Love these Sunday shows, chaps. Keep them coming. Thanks, Jojo.
Thanks, Jojo. And I am sorry that we're only going to do an hour tonight, people, but it's just the way of things. I know somebody put in comments a few weeks ago, it'd be nice they could do another 2 hours. Well, we could, but Les can't because he's got to be somewhere. But we'll get 2 hours in on Thursday, fingers crossed.
Okay, Brett Barrow, artist. Could Paul not ask a fisherman to take him out on a boat for a stakeout one evening?
Yeah, you've just said it, Brett. Not. If there's one thing I don't want to do, if there's one thing that I know would frighten me, to be going out on them boats. You know, I've got friends in Harbour who've got boats, and they've offered to take me out. They offered to take Les when I took him with me. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I'd definitely go out.
I wouldn't.
Give it another chance, yeah.
I'll walk around dark cliff tops, Dark woods on my own. I won't go on that boat. It'd frighten me. I wouldn't do it. Don't mind
Well,
that.
the sea don't. Not everybody takes to the sea, Paul, and you're one of
Laura
those.
Sinclair, my daughter, says, I've heard the humming noise in the early hours. My husband has been up early for work and I asked him if he could hear it too. Just checking it wasn't me. So it's interesting that, Laura, because we've not spoke about it, have we? I saw yesterday as well. Not that she has to speak about humming. Right.
I'll just slip this one in. I know you've just you touched on it earlier, Paul.
Well, yeah, I don't know if it will, Al.
Will it be videoed?
Be videoed because it was Al that asked it. I don't know if it will. I don't know whether there's a live link to it, but I will ask that question tomorrow, mate, and I'll get in touch with you and let you know.
Bramwell is asking, any thoughts on the likeliest place to see UFOs in the UK?
If you want to see unexplained lights in the UK, I would definitely suggest Bempton. I'd say Speeton, but it's a bit more inaccessible. But definitely doesn't mean you're going to see them, Bramwell. For certain, it doesn't mean you're going to see them. I would say 99.9% of the time you're going to see nothing. But there's a higher probability of seeing something there, I reckon, than anywhere else in UK. I know people will disagree, but that's what I think.
Yep, and TA, thanks for your donation tonight. Also, they're very much appreciated. Right then, Bobby Dazzler, I've got a question. Have any military personnel come forward with any info on dealings with recovered craft or sightings on exercises? It's a good question.
Yes. Yeah. I've spoken to several people, and I mean, I'll not go into massive detail. But our dealings with recovered craft or sightings on exercises. No, I've spoken. No, there's that much of it, Bobby Dazzler, but just one that I've spoken to recently regarding XS894 and where he saw XS894 in 1984. That's the lightning that allegedly crashed. UFO-related incident, allegedly, on September 8th, 1970. People will have heard me talk about it for years. And I've had an airman come forward or a military personnel, RAF, come forward and say that they saw that aircraft in a hangar, a disused hangar in 1984, and he's given me air base and everything, which is fascinating because allegedly it went to America. So there you go. More on that because I've gathered more information. I've had long conversations with this man. So more to come on that.
Interesting, that one. And just a comment from Joey.
Saw green lights under sea as well from Chris James. So I'm sorry, Chris. But anyway, I know. Go on then.
Yeah, thanks for the time you both put in, Paul and Les. Much appreciated. And thank
you, Joey.
Right,
I think we're all doing it. You're sat in chat. You people in chat.
Yeah.
We're all looking for the same thing. There's no experts here. It's just, have you filmed these lights, Paul? So what lights are we talking about, Mark? We filmed the lights over the sea. I filmed them on the Wolds, the East Yorkshire Wolds, and twice last year under the sea. So yeah, we've filmed them. We've managed to obtain footage of them. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know which videos they'll be on the YouTube videos. What the Paul?
Yeah,
I can't remember which ones.
I've put the worst of the footage, Mark. I've put on the YouTube for no other reason than throughout this year I'll be doing a few projects with Les and with Chris Turner, and we're going to use some of that footage, to highlight what's been seen and experienced.
Okay, and I think at the moment, let's have a look. Run out of questions.
Thanks,
Alison, for sending those through.
No worries. So right, I'll just go through this account from a chap I spoke to this week called, we'll call him Melvin. I've changed his name, and it happened on 24th of the 11th, 2019. It's not earth-shattering, but it's interesting, and there'd just been a storm outside where he lived. I'll not say where he lived. I don't want to go too many details away, to be honest. And when he went out to have a look, see if it had passed, he noted that the wind were at two levels. It were blowing in two directions because up high in the sky, you could see the dark clouds moving much faster. And he also saw the moon behind the clouds. And just below the cloud line, he could see what he called a craft, a UFO. He called it a UAP. And he said it was typical shape of the Aurora. So if you want to Google this, the Aurora craft, the supposedly man-made craft, but it's stationary in the sky. It's just hung there. And he said it had, but unusually, it had like a World War II cockpit, bubble-like cockpit on the back. And he was disappointed. He felt disappointed when he viewed it. He says, I'd never seen a UFO in my life. And when I saw this thing, let me just move this bit of paper, I felt disappointed. It weren't what I was thinking a UFO would look like. He said, I could see rivets and panels. That's what he said. And it's silent. And he said it had a green hue around it. So this had this cockpit and rivets and panels. And then, as I've just said, it looked disappointed. I've only just put this together. He said it was strobing a little bit faster than what you would associate with a torch, the strobe light of a torch, but it's stationary, and he can see it clearly enough to see rivets and panels. And then he had the idea. This is where it gets a bit freaky for me. He says, I had the idea. I thought, I'll go get my camera. He says, and then he gave me the analogy. He says, can you imagine wearing a crown? You know, or like, I don't know, we might have all wore something like that in a play or something at school. He says that feeling, he said, I got that feeling wrapped round my head. And then all of a sudden, a voice hit the top of my head he believes it was from that craft. He said, and it just said, no. He says, and I felt like a little child who'd just been told off. He says, and I bent at the knees and put my arms out to stop myself falling down because this voice hit me in the head. He says, my wife came out. I says, and I showed it to her, and she hurried back in, and she says, and they're not UFO people. And as she's going in, she's just, her only words were, don't be trying to communicate with it. Yeah. And she went back in. So he said he felt that the no was an instant warning. So yeah, just a short account really of a strange event. So he's seen something that doesn't really conform to what we would think of a UFO. You know, it looked old and unconventional, and if we've got something that's got panels and rivets, you wouldn't expect it to be, it's not on a string, you wouldn't expect it to be hung in sky, would you? You know what I mean? Yeah. So it basically, for me, the fascinating part of this, it's probably all fascinating, is the fact though that he got this voice. He said, and it hit him, it hit him in the head, the voice, and he buckled at his knees and put his arms out, and he felt like a child scolded. In fact, he used the analogy. He says, did you ever watch the advert for gas safety? When there's been a gas on in a home and then you're just going to switch the light on and somebody shouts no and you stop. He said, and that's just how it felt. He said, it were a proper warning to stop. He said, now, I was only thinking, shall I get my camera? So, yeah, a weird one. I don't know what people think of that, if anything.
And was this a daytime or nighttime sighting?
They were nighttime sighting after there'd been a storm, Les, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And that's just about took us up to the hour, hasn't it?
Just about there. And yeah, got to thank everybody. Martin Abbas, Madeline Wick, Enigma, Brownwell, and TA for the donations tonight into the channel.
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
Well, yeah, thank you. And Chris James, I did glance at your question. It weren't in caps. If it were a question, but I'll have a look through that later, mate. And anything to do with green underwater. And I think it was Chris that reported the green lights underwater to me, and I've got more reports of green lights under the water and over the sea, and Ulrome keeps coming up for green lights, which is fascinating, and it's just down coast. You know where Ulrome is, Les?
Yeah, so, yeah, yes, certainly do. And just to pick up on one of the questions earlier of asking where the best parts of the UK are, and you mentioned lights in the sky. You can't doubt that Bempton's going to be one of the hot spots. But I'd like to know from other people in the chat, people out and about there, you know, is any other areas that we don't know of what are as quite as active as what Paul mentions in his books and videos?
I think that's a great idea, and I'd love to know. Yeah, I'd love to know, and I'd love to hear about what you've seen and experienced. And I see Ginger's in, Keith Lard's in, Disabled Welshman, and Brett's in, obviously, and Baby with a Laser, Gren Steele, all people we've not mentioned. And apologies, Alex Thompson, if we've missed you, 40 and Mark, and yeah, all good.
Thanks, Alison, for doing the chat tonight. Some great questions came through, and did you enjoy answering those, Paul?
I did, yeah. And if we do this next Sunday, people, why not fire some questions at Les? And if you know Alison via Facebook and she didn't mind, fire some at Alison as well. And because I love answering questions, it just keeps us on his toes, doesn't it?
Yeah. So on that note, then we are about to go in a few seconds.
Hi, Andy.
Oh, right. Yeah, we're about to go in a few seconds, and we'll see you all on Thursday with a good following wind. We can't tell you who's on there. At the
I
moment.
can't because I haven't got anybody. But we should have.
We will have. I'm
yeah,
sure we'll have somebody good. On that note, we are out of here.
I have a few questions for Paul and Les, Rev said, so we've missed them. But apologies, Rev, if we've missed your questions, mate. Right, okay.
We're good. And we're out of here. And thanks, everybody. Good night.
Right, good night. Thank you.